The glitched attraction's second escape room is called Toys, and it is themed after Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Within it, we must avoid Toy Chica, Mangle, Withered Freddy, and Vanny. She's somewhere, or at least there is an achievement for her, but this is of course HorrorScoped, where we put your favorite horror games under the scope, and break them. So I hope you're ready for behind the scenes looks, a very wide Chica, and a hidden room. As always, I hope you enjoy. So after the very first escape room, we go through a hallway and we find ourselves in the second. Now in this area, we have to hide in various lockers while we avoid Chica and Mangled as we make our way around this circular room. Our goal is to find hidden code pieces all around this entire area. And once we get these code pieces, we then punch in the combination into the panel, and then we open this metal door. Now after this, we have to turn on the power, and at this point we have to worry about Withered Freddy escaping his case. So we basically have to wind up the music box that is Withered Freddy and keep it charged enough so he does not get angry and break out of his case. If he does, he goes and blocks the way to the puzzle that we need to solve. Now we have to go around this room and collect various gears, and hopefully not get spooked by Balloon Boy's hello. It is truly the worst jump scare.
Hi.
So basically, you manage all the animatronics in the room so they don't kill you, and you collect all these gears, and then you are done. But now that we're done with that quick breakdown of how things work, it is now time to actually break things. So, as always, let's turn back the clock, because I want to talk about the title screen first. So, when you reach this area in the game, the title screen changes to be this Five Nights at Freddy's 2 area. And normally, we can only see this room through this one camera angle. However, if we remove the title screen itself, and we move the camera around, we can find some interesting things. For starters, Chica just straight up walks through walls anytime she appears in this room, and she warps around quite a lot. She always just walks straight through a wall. And Mangle is kind of the same way. Mangle normally comes out the different vents, and in this room, they're also popping out the left side of the screen and the right side of the screen. In all these various areas, Mangle is basically just kind of appearing out of nowhere. They're either floating in the room, or they just clip through a wall, and then they retract back through that wall. This is what Mangle looks like up in the vents too. They just retract into the vents, and then they freeze in place, and then they eventually warp somewhere else in the room. So what's kind of neat is that the first title screen area, that first escape room, is actually located right next to this one. And if we follow Chica as she walks through a wall, she will actually walk all the way over to this room. Normally these areas are not loaded in at the same time, but I can kinda do what I want, so here they are. But now let's actually go back into the story mode because we have some interesting things to cover. So in order to fully explore this room, I want to make myself invincible. That way I didn't have to worry about any of the animatronics killing me. So I basically turned off the collision so that jump scares could not trigger if I was touched by any of the animatronics. And so as you can see, both Chica or Mangle can just kind of walk inside of me and they don't know what to do because they cannot catch me. But it also makes the camera look really glitched and I cannot see at all. So, using my 10,000 IQ, I decided to separate the camera from the actual player. So I took the character controller, the person that we control, and then I took the camera, separate from that, and placed them in two different areas. And this caused Chica and Mangle to go after where the character is standing, but I could view them from an outside perspective. Now, you're probably thinking, this looks really weird, and I don't really know what to say, so I'm not sure if that's what they meant by the glitched attraction, but here we are. Anyways, to avoid that, I decided to disable both Chica and Mangle. And by doing so, they basically vanished from the map. And so, I really want to take some time to check Out of Bounds now. So this is what Out of Bounds looks like around this room. There's a lot of walls and flooring that sort of extend outward from the playable area, and they sort of just retreat out into the darkness and stop. However, there is something really interesting out here. So normally when you're inside, there is a window you can look through, and you can see Foxy sitting on the ground in a hallway, and they're glitching out. But we can actually enter this hallway from Out of Bounds. Now this hallway goes nowhere at all, and it actually has just like a dead end on one side. But this is what Foxy looks like up close when they're glitching out. It actually looks really cool, and it's kind of a shame that we can only see this from far away through the window. But yeah, Foxy has seen better days, so we're gonna leave them out here and we're gonna head back into Bounds now. So I mentioned earlier that Withered Freddy breaks out of his case, and this is what it looks like when it's happening right in front of your face. Now, I of course have nothing to worry about because he cannot hurt me because he cannot detect where I am. So even though he goes to block us, we can kind of just walk through him. I can also move him wherever I want, so I scoot him on the hallway a bit. Now at this point, I decide to turn both Mangle and Toy Chica back on. Except, something bizarre happened. Mangle had seen better days. They were basically dead. They were laying on the floor, deactivated, clipping through the ground, and for some reason, they were like rotating around me anytime I try to look at them. And although I want to laugh and say this is Chica's fault, I actually think what's happening is when I turned Mangle back on, my character's camera was facing a different direction. So this sort of messed up the orientation of Mangle and how he approaches the character. He basically had the wrong orientation when he was brought back into the game. And this reminds me a ton of what I did with Zardy in my own game, Zardy's Maze. A while ago, I was messing with Zardy and I rotated him and then assigned him back to his normal, like, chase down the player parameters. And every time I would rotate, he would move, like, with the camera in a circle. And this would cause him to glitch around the screen. And Mangle is doing that same exact thing, except Mangle is just straight up dead. F in the chat, fam. So there is no hope for Mangle. However, with Chica, I wanted to mess with her too. So we started making Chica just wider. And a wide Chica is honestly kind of terrifying. But the thing is, there is no real limit to how wide Chica can be, so we make her even wider. Now at this point, she is asserting her dominance in this area, and she is basically shoulder to shoulder with the hallway walls. And at this moment, Chica decides that she's too powerful for this world. So she just straight up walks through the wall and steps all over Foxy as she tramples him in that hallway. And before the whole game implodes, I put all that to a stop, and we resume something a bit normal. Now, for the very last thing I want to talk about, I was taking the camera up above the room and looking around. And that's when I realized I never focused on that in-between room. The room between Balloon Boy and the marionette. There's actually a small space between them that has some interesting things stored within. There's like some weird small metal pipes or trinkets that are sort of just floating in here, but most peculiar is that there is a severed Freddy Fazbear hand floating in the middle of this area. At this time, I do not know why this is here. There's just a floating hand here, and it's kind of creepy, but it is hidden behind the walls, and you will never see it unless you clip outside the room. But with that, that wraps up our very interesting toy room experience. But onward to the next escape room, and onward to seeing you in the next video. Cheers!